At the beginning of recorded existence in Greek mythology, the first forms emerged without sequence or separation. Among them were Gaia, representing the ground, and Uranus, representing the upper expanse. Their union produced multiple offspring, classified as Titans. One of these was Hyperion. He existed as a defined presence associated with elevation and observation of the upper regions. Hyperion occupied a position among the Titan generation without singular dominance. His function corresponded to light that traversed space. His form was described in relation to scale and position rather than distinct features. He operated within a system where movement and cycles were not yet separated into individual forces. The environment consisted of continuous transitions between darkness and illumination without discrete intervals. These conditions did not follow a structured pattern, and no independent agents controlled specific aspects of change. Hyperion formed an association with Theia, another Titan whose domain involved visibility and perception. Their pairing resulted in 3 offspring: Helios, Selene, and Eos. These 3 entities represented subdivisions of the broader concept previously attributed to Hyperion. Each assumed a defined role. Helios became associated with the consistent traversal of the sky during periods of illumination. Selene corresponded to reflected light during periods absent of solar presence. Eos marked transitional intervals between darkness and light. Following the emergence of these entities, the system of cycles became more structured. Helios followed a repeated path across the upper boundary, creating a predictable pattern. Selene operated on a separate but coordinated path, appearing when Helios was absent. Eos functioned at the boundary between these 2 states, indicating change without altering the system itself. Hyperion's direct involvement in these processes decreased as these roles became independent and self-sustaining within the structure of the cosmos. During this period, additional Titans occupied various roles related to natural forces and abstract conditions. Among them were figures such as Oceanus and Iapetus, each maintaining separate domains. These entities did not interfere with the structured motion established by Hyperion's offspring. Instead, they existed parallel to these processes, contributing to a broader system of categorized functions. Hyperion remained aligned with the upper region, but did not expand his role beyond its original scope. A shift in authority occurred when Kronos replaced Uranus as the primary governing figure among the Titans. This transition altered hierarchical organization, but did not remove earlier entities from existence. Hyperion continued to exist within the system, maintaining his classification as a Titan without assuming central control. His function remained observational and associated with elevation, rather than governance or enforcement. As cycles continued to stabilize, the division of time into repeating intervals became more apparent. The movement of Helios defined measurable durations of light. The appearance of Selene established corresponding intervals of reduced illumination. Eos marked the transition points between these phases, allowing observers to distinguish beginnings and endings within the cycle. These patterns repeated without deviation, forming a consistent structure that did not require modification. A subsequent generation emerged from Kronos, including Zeus and other Olympian figures. This group initiated a conflict identified as the Titanomachy. The conflict involved 2 groups: the original Titans and the newer Olympian entities. Hyperion was aligned with the Titans. His participation was not individually documented in detail, but was categorized as part of the collective opposition to the Olympian group. The conflict extended over a prolonged interval with repeated engagements. Environmental conditions were altered during these interactions, affecting land, sky, and lower regions. Structural stability was disrupted, though the established cycles of light maintained continuity through the actions of Helios, Selene, and Eos. These cycles persisted independently of the conflict, indicating that their functions had become detached from the authority of the Titans. Eventually, the Olympian group achieved dominance. Following this outcome, many Titans were reassigned to confinement within Tartarus. Hyperion was included among those relocated. The reassignment was not selective based on individual function, but applied broadly to members of the Titan group who opposed the Olympians. Within Tartarus, spatial and temporal conditions differed from upper regions. Movement was limited, and external interaction was reduced. Hyperion remained in this state without recorded change. His previous association with light was no longer active in observable systems. The functions he once represented had already been transferred to his offspring, which continued their operations without interruption or dependence on his presence. Above, Helios maintained a consistent path, marking intervals of illumination. Selene continued her cycle during alternate periods. Eos remained at transitional points. These processes became standardized, forming the basis for recurring measurement of time. The system no longer required Hyperion's direct presence to function. Other Olympian-aligned figures, such as Apollo, were later associated with similar domains, though their roles differed in origin and structure. As generations progressed, observers and recorders within mythological tradition categorized earlier entities based on lineage and function. Hyperion was identified primarily as a progenitor rather than an active agent. His placement within the Titan generation remained fixed, and his associations were preserved through structured accounts rather than evolving narratives. The continued operation of celestial cycles reinforced the division of responsibilities that originated with Hyperion's offspring. These divisions allowed for consistent interpretation of environmental patterns, including the repetition of day and night and the predictability of transitions between them. The stability of these systems did not require revision, and no additional entities were introduced to replace Hyperion's original scope. No further developments involving Hyperion were recorded in later sequences of mythological structure. His position remained static within the Titan classification, and his narrative did not expand beyond origin, association, and reassignment. The system continued to operate through defined roles established after his era, with no indication of reintegration or change in his status. The account of Hyperion demonstrates a transition from generalized forces to specialized functions within early cosmological interpretation. His existence represents an initial stage in which multiple aspects of light and observation were unified before division into separate entities. This division allowed for more precise representation of recurring natural patterns and contributed to the development of structured explanations for environmental consistency. Thus, Hyperion remains defined as an originating figure linked to light and elevation, whose significance is preserved through structure rather than activity. His origins, relationships, and reassignment form a complete sequence that does not extend into later modifications. The system in which he existed continues independently, sustained by the roles that emerged from his initial function.